Okay, well, hi everyone. Thank you very much for watching and listening. It's Liam Hartree here today with another episode of Presenting Champions. And today I'm truly honored and truly blessed to be joined by a man who has an incredible life story from football hard man to the boxing ring, formerly one of football's toughest hooligans for Manchester City. This man has become a professional boxer at an age when most people are hanging up the gloves. He launched into that career as an amazing story of recovery from addiction, from homelessness, from so many things that would put most people down. Is the real life Rocky. I've got to say, there's a documentary out there about this man's life. He does a lot of work raising awareness for these topics. So, as always, we're going to be going a little bit deeper, not just talking about sports, but going a bit deeper into the mindset it takes to overcome your demons and live a good life, live a fulfilling life. So, mate, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show, and thank you so much for making the time. To be honest, appreciate that.
No problem. Thank you, man. My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Liam.
No worries at all, mate. No worries at all. So, obviously, now, I mean, your life is amazing. You're having a lot of success in the boxing ring. I know, obviously, you recently retired from that. We'll talk about that. You've got the documentary, you've got some amazing things happening, but your life wasn't always like this. So, I'm going to go back in time and just touch on your upbringing, just touch a little bit on where you're from. Now, as I said to you before, everything I talk about is always from the positive side, it's always about how you've bounced back from one adversity after another. It's amazing. But with that being said, your upbringing wasn't easy by any means. Can you share with us a little bit about that and how that shaped you into the man you are today? Please, let's start there.
Yeah, I was born '83 in Manchester. It was Manchester wasn't the city what it is now. It was deprived. Majority, the areas was deprived then. Um, my mum and dad, both teenagers, both struggled in life a little bit. My mum was an heavy drinker, and around about the age of 3, I found myself living with my grandparents in an area called Ancoats in Manchester. And from there, I went on to stay with them for the rest of my childhood. We went on to move to an area called Mars Platin, which was quite a deprived area. It's been done up now, sort of like a redevelopment. But yeah, so I went and stayed with my nana, who brought me up right from 3 years old up to my teens.
Okay, so that's how the story started. Well, thank you, man, for sharing that because, again, anyone out there going through a similar thing at an early age or anyone who's been through a similar thing, it shows how you can come back from it. So I know you talk about these things a lot, but I am just starting off by with gratitude for that because some of the things we share, they are personal, and I appreciate you being an open book straight off the bat with this. Now, obviously, when it comes to the football side of things and what you're known for, in terms of getting into that scene, let's talk about how that started for you basically and what first drew you into that world in the beginning.
Yeah. Well, obviously, like I say, I moved in with my nan and granddad. I'm probably from an early age, I sort of struggled to sort of like know where I fitted in. Um, you know, I was loved by my nana. You know what I mean? I was loved, and I had a good upbringing there. But it was something sort of inside that I probably felt, I wasn't sure where I belonged, and I struggled in school to fit in. Struggled in the local area. I mean, in these days now, like it's like the late '80s, early '90s. In Manchester, it was all Manchester United, and the area was full of Manchester United fans. So at the age of 7, I was took to Main Road to watch Manchester City. And the minute I went in the ground, I still, even now when I think about it, the hairs on the back of my neck just stood up. And for the first time in my life, I just felt like I belonged there. You know, the sort of like the togetherness of the fans, the swaying. It was all tennis in them days. I've never experienced anything like that in my life. When City scored, the roar, everyone jumping up, and it was like electrifying. It was like I was just hooked from that moment on. I was just obsessed. I was just obsessed with like, the tennis culture and Manchester City. And obviously in them days, City wasn't the club what they are now. They weren't as successful as what they are now. But but yeah, the fan base was something different. You know, it was a real togetherness, and it was, you know, from that day one, I just felt like this was home, and I used to travel from the area in North Manchester where I lived over to South Manchester, Summerside, to watch them week in week out from, you know, from the age of 7. Just fell in love with the club.
Absolutely, yeah. Love at first sight, mate. I can tell from the way you're talking about it, and your face just lights up with, with the memories and everything. It's incredible. So yeah, it was pretty much that's where I want to be. So in terms of getting initiated more into the culture and getting, going a bit deeper into it, can you share with us about the process? I mean, I guess we're talking about your teenage years here, but what sort of age were you getting like deeper into getting involved in the whole culture of it?
Um, sort of, I mean, the tennis culture. I think anybody can get drawn into it. You know, there's a separate side to the sort of like the football violence, what I later become involved in. But just the tennis culture, you know, the fashion, you know, and the day out with the lads, you know, the singing, and I mean that from that was sort of quite early on. I was aware of the football hooligan scene round about the age of round about the age of 7 or 8, when I, you know, first witnessed, you know, the trouble in the stands, and I was drawn to it then because it just looked like chaos. And I think, looking back, probably because my life was a bit chaotic, you know, and some of the things that I'd seen when I was younger and everything else, probably just a natural reaction just to be drawn to some sort of chaos. Um, but yeah, I didn't really get involved. I mean, I was probably on the outskirts in sort of like my late teens, you know, mid to late teens. I'd get involved a little bit here and there, you know, with the football violence. And then probably as I got into my 20s, then I was sort of, you know, I was hanging around with who you'd call the lads, which was, you know, what we call the firm. Um, and it just went on from there, really, right through my 20s into my 30s.
Yeah, yeah, it makes sense. That's what I was getting at is the transition from,
Yeah.
two sides of the game, basically, or, two sides of the culture. Yeah, getting deeper into that. Now, obviously, your story about a lot of the fights and a lot of the crazy things you were doing is out there a lot. So people can watch a documentary, people can hear everything. So we'll touch on a few sort of highlights, I guess. But if people want to go deeper, I'll say to any of them, look into some of those interviews or go a bit deeper again. But in terms of how you make a name for yourself in the violence side of it now and in that scene, because it's one thing to say, okay, I fancy getting into a bit of chaos. It's another thing to be, recognized by those guys who are already established, to be initiated into the scene. So again, and with this, I don't know how much you can say about certain things. So if we ever touch on anything that, you don't want to go too deep into, just let me know. But in terms of being recognized, initiated, going from having the odd fight here and there to being recognized as a a hardcore member, as you say, one of the lads. What was that process like for you? How long did that take? Let's just talk a little bit about that switch as well, please, mate.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I sort of like around about my late teens, I was just sort of tagging on. Obviously, I knew who the lads was then, and I just sort of like tag on, and you know, and I was probably just on the fringes. And as I got older into me, sort of like my early 20s, you know, I realised I could fight a bit. Then I was working as a club doorman as well, at the time, and yeah, I think I sort of like just the adrenaline rush of sort of like getting involved. It wasn't that I was fearless. It was just that the adrenaline and the emotion that I got from it sort of took over any fear. Um, so I was just always bang at it at the front. I wanted to be at the front. I wanted to be seen. I wanted to be noticed. I wanted, probably wanted the attention. I wanted to, um, I wanted the admiration of the lads. And probably chasing that sort of admiration. I think from the lads. Um, yeah, and then I know people noticed it. You sort of like you get a reputation, and as the years passed on, you sort of like recognise as one of the top lads. Then as you sort of like went into my mid 20s.
Yeah, it makes sense, and it's good to touch on the some of the emotional and the mental reasons as well
Yeah.
behind that, because I'm hoping that that will help, other young lads out there. I mean, when you look back on some of this side of things now, I know we're moving slightly further ahead, but I can see you thinking back to the times and everything. How do you feel about it? Do you miss it? Do you regret any of those times? Is it because I when I've seen other interviews with you with this, it's like there's slightly mixed feelings, like it made you the man you are today. So, nothing to be ashamed of there, but maybe there's one or two things you would change. But how do you, I know it's a big question, but when you look back on it now, let's start with, do you miss it? Do you miss the adrenaline? Let's start
Um,
there.
do you know? I don't think I'd ever. I wouldn't say I'd miss it. No. Do you know? Um, Probably sort of like grew up a little bit, and I've probably outgrown it now. And it probably, probably took a lot of growth, but a lot of maturing to sort of like, come to terms with some stuff. And it was probably, a bit of a relief for me. There's probably a lot of pent up emotions, and that, at the time, it was, it was what I wanted to do or what I had to do to sort of like release them, suppose. Um, but yeah, I wouldn't say I miss it, But on the other hand, as well, I can't say I regret it because, like I say, it's made me the man who I am. We're up, and I think it's the experiences that through life that sort of like make you the person you are, and without them experiences, there's no room for growth, is there? So I think that's sort of like where I'm trying to come from.
Yeah, yeah, I appreciate that, man, because that's where I was coming from of trying to strike the balance, if you get what I mean, between how
Yeah,
you've grown and how you've changed. But yeah, 100%. I think for men, a lot of times in this day and age, we don't have, even now, we don't have enough of those outlets for people, for young guys and everything. And it's still not talked about enough. It's come a long way, but there's a way to go. And when it comes to that topic, I mean, your advice for people who are caught up in that type of scene, getting caught up in that type of scene. I know, obviously, with some aspects of this, it is changing now with football fans. It's not the same, but some of the fighting and some of the stuff, obviously, it still goes on. What would you say to people watching this who are maybe being drawn into that life or thinking about it? Maybe they're already there. That type of thing, please.
yeah. I think there's a lot more things out there that you can sort of put your attention and put your energy into. And obviously, I found boxing a bit late on. Things could have been a lot different if I would have had, sort of put my energy in and me sort of effort into something else like boxing. But yeah, I think men do need the release. They do need the release. Especially at that age. A lot of testosterone and maybe some stuff from the childhood that they're not dealing with, and it it does. More than likely it is going to spill out in other areas that it probably shouldn't do. You know, but again, it's that's life. It's easy for an older head on to try and tell a younger man that it's I suppose for me as well. I think they've got to make their own mistakes, haven't they? They've got to learn themselves, I suppose. Um, it's all well and good, getting the advice, but I think life's probably about making the mistakes yourself.
Yeah, well, this is the thing. Sometimes you have to learn from experience and everything, I think, but still, somebody who's as respected as yourself and everything you've come through to put the word out there, I hope it does help some people. I mean, it's as simple as that, even if it makes people think twice.
Yeah,
Like you say, I mean, it's not the aggression, it's none of that. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's how you choose to channel it, what you choose to focus it
yeah,
into. And it's a powerful message. Now, we'll move on into some other areas of your life shortly as well. Before we do, I just want to get one or two stories of some of the fights and things, just because people always want to hear about it. And what I'm going to do with this, there's probably too many to mention. Maybe there's some you can't mention. I don't know. So what I was thinking is, if we focus on one or two of the toughest ones or the most brutal ones, because I've heard of some crazy stories where, including one, I think it was an interview you were doing with Carlton Leach, and you mentioned about being hit with a hammer and having
yeah.
teeth knocked out, being knocked unconscious, and there's some crazy situations. So one or two of those stories like that, because obviously it goes beyond just the fists and it goes a bit deeper into some of the weapons and things. What would you say was your most brutal moment when you were involved in the football violence that
Yeah,
you can mention?
probably the time you just spoke about. It was a Manchester derby. Playing our rivals, Man United, and yeah, it was. There was a group of about 50 of us waiting in a pub, and then we knew that United was gonna turn up sooner or later, which they did. We went round the pub, round the corner. We was met by about 120 United fans. Yeah, and the weapons was drawn out. And I was just, before I had a chance to do anything, I was hit with an hammer. It split my mouth right through and knocked some teeth right up behind my cheekbone. I was knocked unconscious for a little while. But yeah, that was it was a brutal fight, and that went on for like around about 15 minutes, which is a long time. Took quite a lot of police to sort of like separate it. The pub was smashed to bits. There was tables and chairs all over the road. By the time I got to the hospital, because obviously when I come round, the fighting was carried on. We was carrying on fighting, and yeah, I had two broken ribs, um, obviously fractured cheekbone, and my teeth had been knocked up right behind my cheekbone. So yeah, it was quite a bad beating, that one. That was quite brutal experience, that one.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you mentioning it because, again, it shows a contrast of your life then to your life now, which we'll get to more very soon. Yeah, I mean, and obviously one other thing about this, and then we'll talk about your recovery and a couple of other things. The whole boiler suit thing, where you run out onto the pitch and everything, it's a bit more of a fun one. It's probably a
Yeah,
bit of a more fun memory than the hammers, and not
yeah.
such a nice memory. So, but yeah, the boiler suit thing. I mean, how did that come about? Was that something you planned, or was it like a spur of the moment? Let's hear
Um,
that story a bit.
yeah, just I was just forever doing crazy things. Like again, as I say, trying to be the centre of attention and after admiration. But yeah, so I wore a paper boiler suit to the game in FA Cup game against Blackburn Rovers at Ewood Park. It was in a quarter final, and I just put a boiler suit on and just went to the match all day, walking around in this boiler suit. And then we found ourselves 2-0 down with about 10 minutes to go, 5, 10 minutes to go. And I decided to try and get on the pitch to get the match abandoned. I got on the pitch, started getting chased around, with the stewards and what have you, and the police. Didn't get the match abandoned. Found myself in the home end, got a little bit of a kick in, and then got arrested for it.
But yeah, it's a good memory, I guess, in a way. I mean, because I mean, it brings a smile to your face, and I gotta
Yeah.
say, man, that's one of the craziest stories I've heard. But in a fun way. So fair play to you, man. Fair play to you. So yeah, I mean, in terms of then the point in time when your life started to change, obviously there's a low and then there's a high here, or there's probably several lows and several highs. But again, focusing on this from the point of view, just how you recovered, I don't want to dwell on anything because I know you were, doing all this stuff with the violence, you were banned from everywhere, all this stuff was going on. But at a point in time, it took a spiral because one of the things I saw when I was researching for this, when I read an article on you, was saying Anthony's toughest fights were outside the ring and outside the terraces. Now I guess that's probably true that some of your toughest fights were sort of inside you with some of the demons and things. And there's a lot of people going through that type of thing, which is my reason for bringing it up. Let's start with, unfortunately, let's just touch on what brought the low in terms of when your life started to change with some of the drinking, the drugs. I know you put a lot of weight on. It seemed like a bunch of things sort of hit you all at once. Can we touch on that a little bit just to set the scene for how you bounce back from it later, if that makes sense, please?
Yeah, yeah. Well, like I say, my mum, she was a heavy drinker, and it's sort of like running in the family. I don't know if it's a genetic, something that's passed down. But from an early age, 40 to 14, 15, I'd always drank heavily, and it was sort of I never had like an off switch. I couldn't control it once I had one drink. And then 2008. My mum died. She passed away through the drink. She was only 44 at the time, so that should have been enough to stop me drinking, really. But it wasn't. I seemed to go worse at the football, worse drinking. I was taking a lot of cocaine as well at the time, right through my 20s. Sort of like by the time I got to 26, 27, I was sort of like out of control really with a drink. I was probably drinking four days out of 7. Cocaine's probably the same. Um, yeah, by the time I got to like 30, I was probably probably class myself as an alcoholic and a cocaine addict. And then just sort of like it was just in cycles, I'd sort of like hit rock bottom and come back round and manage to stay clean and sober a few weeks, few months, and then sort of like 2018. My nana. Well, I was living back with my nana, but she passed away in 2018. Um, and that sort of like sent me in a bit, on a big spiral of depression. I was struggling as well with one of my kids I'd not seen since she was born. She's now 5. I had that in the back of my mind, and then I had a relationship that just broke up, and all within the space of sort of like a couple of months, really. And just spiraled out of control. Just sort of like gave up a little bit on everything, really, and just sent me onto a mental binge. I was homeless. I was squatting back at my nana's house in the bedroom where a few months before just watched her die. Obviously I had nowhere to live, so that was adding to my problems. And just every day, just drinking drugs for 4 months to the point where I was sort of like probably insane at the time. I was hallucinating. Wasn't eating properly. And I was, like I say, I ballooned up to 19 stone just before that. Probably lost, quite a lot of weight. Probably looked, probably near death's door. And then I managed to get myself to a cocaine anonymous meeting and started on the 12 steps. Around about the same time, I managed to get, I was working for the Singhs. It is a Sikh family who rehoused me as well. He said they only had an house to rent, and it was from there on really. I just sort of like went from strength to strength. It was like it was do or die really. I knew it was either one way I was going to go. I was either going to end up in a box, 6 feet under, or I was just going to get out of it and turn my back on it completely. And started to get myself fit again, keep training. I'd always boxed on and off throughout my 20s, even though I was heavily drinking and on drugs. I'd always boxed unlicensed, on and off. And I managed to have a bit of a decent following as well with the lads from the football. And then so as I approached, I was in my 30s now, and I decided to get back into boxing and get myself fit. But obviously this time without the drinking, the drugs. And I managed to shed right down, to about 14 and a half stone from 19 stone. And then as I did this and become fitter, I done a lot better with the boxing. A couple of unlicensed that sort of like titles, if you like. I won them. And just went from strength to strength, really. Just went from strength to strength.
Well, it's amazing. I mean, it's what they say. It sounds like a cliche, but the old saying of when you hit rock bottom, you've got nowhere to go but up and everything like that. I mean, it's one thing to say it, it's another thing to live it. But the fact that you pulled yourself back from there, going to the cocaine anonymous and everything. I mean, it's amazing. Like your inner strength with that. It's just it blows me away. And like I said earlier, mate, I appreciate you sharing it because I know you do speak about this stuff. I know it's something you do, and that's cool. But nonetheless, I still respect that because it's not the easiest thing in the world to talk about. And when I'm asking people these things, I'm often thinking that thing, okay, it's going to help someone, but at the same time, it's not the easiest thing to sort of for you to think back there. So I do appreciate that. Now, a couple of things there. I mean, when it came to going to Cocaine Anonymous, was it like just your idea, literally something you just thought, right, I need to do this, or was it something that somebody gave you or like showed you in some way or something like that?
No, I mean, obviously, I've been sort of like I struggled with cocaine and alcohol for 15 years, probably on and
Yeah,
off. And there was just no way I could. There was no way, it broke relationships up. I wasn't seeing my kids, and I was probably at the time. If I wouldn't have gone, I probably would have ended my own life. That's the sort of frame of mind I was in. I was in that much pain emotionally, um, and just couldn't get off the drug. And the more I tried to get off it, the more it would seem to be taking, and it was just like just a vicious cycle. And yeah, I just decided to take myself. It was sort of like it was sink or swim. And I sort of like I had no choice really. I didn't really want to die. I probably wanted that pain to stop. What I was in. Didn't really want to die. I wanted to live for my kids. And I just decided, yeah, I just turned up one day, looking disheveled and as rough as anything. I just turned up one day and within the first 20 minutes, listening to some of the stories in the room there, I just knew. I thought, yeah, I'm a cocaine addict. Uh, yeah, and I just kept, someone said to me, just keep coming back, and I just kept going back. Found a sponsor, done the 12 steps, and it managed to, for the first time in my life, I felt free of the urge to sort of like go and drink and take drugs.
amazing, absolutely amazing. And how long now have you been sober and clean and everything like that?
Well, I mean, this was what we now to like. So it's like this was like 5 years, but over the last couple of years, I have had a little blip last year, and I had one earlier this year as well. So I've not been completely clean and sober, but it was nothing like you know what previous years, what's happened previous years.
Yeah. Well,
I suppose that sort of addiction, it'll never leave me. I'll never be able to go and have one or two pints. The minute I think that I can do that, and I've gone and done it, it's just took me straight back. It'll never go. I'll never be able to control it. Whether that's a genetic or just a disease that we have.
yeah. Well, still, I mean, massive respect, mate, for getting to where you are today. I mean, it's one of the hardest things. I got so many mates who've been through it, and to this day, I mean, obviously, especially with the cocaine and that, it's a massive problem now. I mean, I know obviously at one point in time it was more the ecstasy and all that stuff, but I mean, the cocaine now is big. I mean, I remember even when I was first working and I was in bars and nightclubs and that, it was just everywhere. It's just rife, and I want to get to that as well. If people are struggling with addiction and people are struggling with that, or they know someone who is, or whatever, your advice for those people, I think, is going to really hit home with them, and really gonna help them. What would you advise them to do if they're in that situation, please, mate?
Yeah, just go and get the help. There's nothing to be ashamed of. You know what I mean? There's like I went to Cocaine Anonymous, and once you get in there, you realise, they're just ordinary people like us. There's no, drug addiction doesn't discriminate against, people from all walks of life. Don't matter how much money you've got, whether you've got millions, whether you've got nothing. Don't matter what colour skin you are, it don't discriminate. If you're addicted to drugs, you're addicted to drugs. Um, and just go and own it. You know what I mean? It's a selfish disease, drug addiction. And it makes you selfish, even though majority of the time, they're not bad people, but it makes you act in that way. Do you know what I mean? Um, someone. I mean, suppose when you're a kid, you're a kid at school, 11, 12. No one puts their hand up and says, "I want to be a drug addict." Do you know what I mean? It's something that you go into, you develop. Maybe you're born with it. I don't know, but yeah, just go and get the help you need. There's no shame in it. There's no shame in going to AA, CA, NA. Wherever you need to go.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm really glad we can put the human side on that, basically, and like I said before, get into the emotions and hopefully break down those barriers a little bit more. Of
Yeah,
course, yeah, speaking out, I mean, it makes people realize they're not alone. This is a big thing as well. Again, not to sound cliche, but it is an isolating thing. I mean, a lot of people I've known, it's quite hidden, like, from their mates and from everybody, and it's it's a very lonely place to be. But when you sort of sit down and you see other people going through it and everything, you feel okay, it's not just me, and it takes a burden off. So I'm really glad that we've mentioned that as well. Now, obviously, when it comes to, well, actually, I need to touch on the unlicensed boxing as well because you were doing that on and off. So that was like your foundation for boxing. How many fights would you say roughly that you had with the unlicensed?
Well, my she's probably first battle about 30, just over 30, I reckon.
Yeah. Yeah, wicked. Okay. So, and then obviously turning pro and everything. I mean, this is something you're very well known for, turning pro. What was it, 37? I think you were. You were.
Yeah, just
Um,
well, just a couple of weeks before my 38th birthday. Yeah,
wow. I mean, that is, like I said at the beginning, a lot of people are hanging up their gloves at that time, but you were just turning over. So, I mean, it's crazy, but it's amazing because it shows how life can change. Can you talk to us about that time in your life? You know, when you first turned pro. What we'll talk about the fights now themselves, but in terms of like what you were feeling and what your expectations were and how you were feeling in yourself, like with the mental health and everything at that time, because it looked like obviously you've gone from down here and things were starting to look up, things were starting to improve. Was that quite an optimistic sort of time in your life when you were first turning pro and everything?
yeah. I mean, sort of. I say around, I was around about 35, and first time I went to the boxing board, they refused me a license. So I went away and I actually had an handful of amateur fights around about the age of 36. And then we was hit by the lockdown. So I was gonna go back to the boxing board, but yeah, I was exercising, I was eating healthy. There was no drinking, drugs going in my system. I was just doing everything right really, and we sort of like everything just changed around me. Do you know what I mean? Good things was coming out, and I was working. I had my kids all every weekend. My daughter that I hadn't had any contact with, she was back in my life. She was coming every weekend now. Um, and yeah, life just sort of like went from to better and better really. Just went on and went on. I ended up having an handful of amateur fights. Like I say, we was hit by lockdown then, so there was nothing happening for a while. And the thought, I'd crossed my mind that maybe this that ship had sailed now, and I wasn't gonna fulfill my dream and sort of like make it as a pro. Um, at the time, I just wanted to, even if I just had one professional fight, I just wanted to make it over that line and just have, just even one. But yeah, in the end, I went back to the board. They decided that they'd assess me and watch me spar with another pro. And a few weeks later, I was granted my professional license. So yeah, I made my professional debut at 37, just well 2 weeks off 38.
Incredible, mate. Like I said, it's like a real life rocket story. I mean, not to sound cliche, but it really, really is. And I mean, your story, the amount of resilience, do you know what I'm saying? The amount of just perseverance and just keeping going that your story shows, it blows me away because even then with lockdown, I mean, that was a whole other hurdle all of its own. And, I mean, what a crazy time that was. So, I mean, to keep going through all these things, massive respect for that, mate, massive respect. So, your debut, I mean, from rock bottom, from to kicking the addictions and, for the most part, pretty much, and losing all the weight and getting your head right and hopefully feeling a lot happier. I mean, it sounds like, can you share with us what the actual night was like? Because it's one thing making your pro debut and everything, and I've been there for loads of fighters who've done that, and it's always special. Do you get what I mean? But for you, in your circumstances, it's like double. It's more special again. So, can you share with us, like, obviously how the fight went, but more like how you were feeling on the night, what the crowd was like, just the memories that have stayed with you from that first fight, please.
Yeah, it's like a bit of a mad build up really. Obviously, sort of like the press got wind of it then, obviously my past and what have you. So, there was sort of like news articles and what have you coming out. I was doing interviews for the first time. And then yes, went to the weigh in and then, these like former world champions there, Anti Crawler, trainers like Joe Gallagher, and it was like, I was pretty starstruck, to be honest with you. You know what I mean? Like coming from, like I say, coming from where I've come from, sort of like in and out of trouble, watching football, avoiding jail, being addicted to drinking, drugs, and homeless. Just a few years before, really, to then being in the changing room with these guys coming over talking to you and they know who you are. It's sort of like just from one end to the other, like, you know, it just like I don't even it's probably still not sinking in now. Um, but yeah, it was just crazy, and then to come out in an arena, with like, 1,000 people, and then you can hear your name being chanted, and all these cameras and lights and what have you. It was just surreal, just a surreal feeling.
Absolutely incredible. I mean, it's amazing. So, obviously, with your boxing career as a pro, I mean, you've done some good things considering the age you were starting and everything like this. But one of the things I was going to do to break this down is actually talk about what you regard to be your favorite moments as a pro. I mean, I know you said earlier on the one hand, things could have been different if you turned pro sooner, but on the other hand, at one point in time, it looked like you were never going to turn pro at all. So
Yeah,
I imagine being in there, is a blessing because, with lockdown and that, none of us knew what was going to happen. So I can imagine in that time there was some doubts there. But basically, of the fights you've had, what is your favorite one personally? Of I think it's seven, isn't it, that you've had pro?
I've had 7,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah. What are your favorite moments? I mean, it's a pretty big question, but I was thinking I'd love to talk about every fight, but we'd be too long on that. So to condense it down a little bit to your personal favorite moments, what are a couple of those, please?
Obviously winning, winning my first pro fight after I lost my first professional fight. So my second, obviously winning that one. That was a sense of relief as well. Do you know what I mean? But my third professional fight was another surreal moment. Obviously when I was watching Man City in the 90s and the early 2000s, Man City captain Andy Morrison, um, sort of like, we spoke to each other via social media, and then he decided, he come down and watched me train at the gym one day, which was like blew my mind. I was starstruck. This is like City's captain. I've stood on the terraces singing his name for like 10 years or whatever. And he decided, he said he was coming to me fight, and he walked me to the ring to Blue Moon, which was like surreal, and then he said, he sat ringside cheering me on. So like, yeah, to go from sort of like 15 years earlier, as a teenager, I'm sat there at Main Road, singing his name. Fast forward, 20 years, sort of, and he sat ringside chanting my name. That's sort of like a dream come true. So that's probably one of my highlights. That was like a dream come true. But but yeah, I think managing to win one professional fight was good. For me, at my level as well. But went on to win four fights. So I suppose that's got to be an highlight as well. That's got to be a good highlight of mine.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. I mean, it's like I say, it's incredible. Anyone who gets in the ring, they always deserve respect and everything in any circumstance. But like I've already said, with your circumstances getting there, it's a whole other thing. Which one was your toughest professional fight in terms of the opponent or the hardest puncher or the best technical fighter? It comes in different forms when you say about toughest. It's not always who hits hardest, but it can be other things. But which one of them was the toughest challenge, if you like, from that point of view?
Um, I mean, on my third professional fight, I had sort of like I fought a guy called Elvis. He was a little bit older than me, so he's done really well. But yeah, I thought no, that was a tough fight, and it was a close fight as well. So that was tough. But I think probably my last fight, I fought Ben Thomas. I'd already beat Ben, but I fought him again in the last fight, and it was just sort of like it was just maybe I wasn't at the races, but he just come out the corner flying, and he just seemed to catch me with everything. And I don't know if maybe my age caught up with me, or maybe it was, because I knew it was my last fight. Don't know. I just sort of like just couldn't seem, just didn't have the speed. Just couldn't, get out of the way, of anything that was through. Um, yeah, and, it cut me badly over my eye, and I suppose, yeah, that was probably, just felt like for the first time, probably felt like I was probably out my depth there.
Yeah, well, that's a brutally honest view of it. But I mean, the thing is, well, one of the things I'm going to say about this actually that I think it'll be an interesting topic for people, right? Your mental strength, because it's one thing being physically tough and all that type of thing,
Yeah.
but your mental strength is another thing altogether. Now, even with what you said there, losing the first pro fight and coming back for another one, I mean, with you in your life, I mean, to be fair, there's been blow after blow, but at the same time, you've got like a will of steel to keep going. And you said earlier about the alcoholism, you said, look, I don't know if it's genetic, I don't know if it's like environment or whatever, and all this type of thing, nature and nurture. Personally, I think it's actually a bit of both, but people have different opinions on that. When it comes to the concept of mental toughness that you obviously have in your life to keep going and not give up and everything, do you think that's something that you were born with, or do you think that's something that's sort of grown stronger in you as your life has gone on, type of thing?
Um, it's probably definitely grown on me. I sort of, because I wasn't always this, I wasn't always mentally strong. You should, give in to temptation a lot, and I'd be easily led astray and what have you. Um, I grew up, a very insecure person as well. So I think sort of like that time, when I was probably at my wit's end, when I felt, you saved rock bottom, but when I was probably there. I thought, the way you sort of like got out of it and how I felt after it, it just sort of like gave me the belief that I know if I could do that, I could do anything. And I think it just sort of stemmed from there. But yeah, I mean, things then I've sort of like I do love challenging myself to the point of where you've got to break through through barriers. Whether that be my fitness or you know, other things, I made a place for myself last year. Anything that comes my way this year, I can't say no. I'm just gonna say yeah. I'm just gonna do it. I went and done a marathon this year, done a bungee jump. Terrified of heights. I went and done a bungee jump. So yeah, I think it's overcoming your fears really, and I think with that, you sort of like your mentality, your mentality, your mental strength will grow.
Yeah, that is an amazing answer because again, it's something that people can cultivate. Do you know what I'm saying? It's something that people can use within themselves. It's one thing to look at you and say, okay, you've got there, but they can do it as well to get
Yeah,
through their challenges. Running a marathon, okay, fair play. I didn't know that actually. So that's an amazing achievement in itself. Yeah, 26 miles. I mean, it's that's pretty wild. How was that experience? We'll touch on that briefly, and then I just want to talk about your documentary future plans, and we'll pretty much wrap it up then. But touching on the marathon, that's a good one because that's a different type of mental challenge, isn't it? Because it's yeah. What was that experience like for you, mate?
yeah. You know what? It was good. What I mean, it was only 3 weeks before I just decided to go on a big run, and I ran 16 and a half mile. I know
Okay,
that's still 10 mile off a marathon, but I just decided just got straight on the phone and booked the Manchester Marathon. It was 3 weeks after, and I didn't go on another run then. And I just thought the next 10 mile, I'd piss it. But when I got to like 18, 19 miles, I was in agony. But like I say, that barrier that you got to keep pushing and pushing on. And yeah, the last 5 mile of that marathon just seemed to go on and on and on forever. You know what I mean? I was in pain. I was had pains that I'd never had running before. But yeah, it was something that I'd always said to do, and I managed to do it in 3.5 hours. So it was not a bad time for me either. Um, and yeah, it was good. I enjoyed it.
fair play. I mean, fair play. That is one of the other. I mean, I've interviewed a lot of people who do all sorts of long distance running and as well as the fighting and all the other stuff. And it is tough in a totally different way. I run myself, and it's tough in a different way. The bungee jump, I got to ask about that because just very briefly, because facing your fears in that way. I mean, it's a fun story, isn't it? But what was it like? What height do you actually drop from? Do you know?
I don't know the exact height. It was in a Wivenshaw in a place, in South Manchester. And it's sort of like, you get took up in a cage by a crane. But when I got up there and had a look round, I could see the city centre, which it's about 15 mile away. I could see the airport as well, which is the other side of Manchester. So I knew it was high, and it just sort of like said, just fall out. So I just like didn't look down. I just sort of like just as soon as he opened it, I didn't tried not to think about it. I just went right. I just went out. But yeah, it was a terrifying sight. Seeing the ground come that fast towards you. Not natural, is it? But yeah, it's another thing that I can tick off and say that I've done it.
Yeah, facing the fears. I mean, fair play. Yeah, so the last couple of things then, and then we'll wrap this up soon because it's a good length for people to sort of enjoy and everything, but not be too much either. Do you know what I mean? One of the things I want to touch on, your documentary that's out there and everything like that I mentioned earlier on. What is it like to see your life in or like on the screen like that? To see the things that you've been through and everything like this, because it's one thing to say, people talk about the documentary itself and everything, and that's wicked, but from your point of view, when you're watching your life unfold like that and other people are seeing it, how does that feel? How do you sort of process that experience, if you get what I mean with this one?
I don't know because obviously, sort of like I've lived it, so I know the ins and outs of it. Do you know what I mean? So just to hear it back, it's like I feel like I've told it 100 times, over and over. And so yeah, I'm not sure really. I suppose it's sort of like I think my story. I said I touched with someone the other week, about my story. It's like people seem to be like, really interested in the past, and the football days. But to me, that was like the most normal part of my life. As crazy as that seems, um, it's just this last part of boxing where it's like I feel like it's like this is like the crazy part now. Do you know what I mean? Um, but yeah, it's just I suppose it's just life experiences. I've lived sort of like I've had that many different experiences. And I suppose the only way to describe it is like, I'm grateful for it all, the good and the bad. It's like the way I described it to someone was like going into a Chinese restaurant. Do you know what I mean? You've got to have a little bit of everything when you go to a Chinese restaurant. Some of it you're gonna love, some of it you're not gonna like at all. But you've got to have that experience.
Yeah, I like that example, man.
Yeah.
I like that. That's cool. I mean, yeah, I get where you're coming from. I love Chinese food as well, so I totally get where you're coming from.
Yeah.
But fair play. I mean, it's a good attitude to have because you never know what life's gonna throw at us and everything like that. But if you look at it, you take the rough with the smooth, as they say, and everything like that. It's a good way of doing it. So I guess really the last thing to touch on here, maybe before we wrap this up, is obviously, as you say, we have been looking back, through your history and everything.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we've touched on different chapters, not just the football. And I know there's a lot more in depth we could go again, but we've had some nice highlights and everything. So, what does the future hold for you? What are your plans from this point forward that you'd like to share with our listeners, please?
Um, well, there was, I was approached about a film last year, sorry, earlier this year. So I'm hoping that takes off, and I can sort of like have a stint at acting. Maybe see where I go with there. I've just done a music video that's been released with with a guy who played Jimmy Corkill out of Brookside who just passed away, and a singer called Coach Lad. So I had a little bit of practice for my acting skills there. So hopefully I can break into some sort of acting, maybe find a couple of roles. I've had an idea that I'll be writing or should write a book. for a couple of years now, and I'm just trying to get the ball rolling with that. You know, starting jotting things down and writing that down. And as far as boxing, I'm probably going to stay on at the gym where I'm at in Neckles over in Salford, Manchester way, and probably help out with the kids and sort of do, help out with the corners.
Yeah. Well, amazing, mate. I mean, first of all, with the book, I was going to say the same thing. So I'm glad that's on the cards, mate, because that's going to make a wicked story.
Yeah,
To be fair, and helping out with the kids. Yeah, again, I'm glad you're saying that because you've got so much life experience to share with them. Do you know what I mean? It's not just the boxing; it's like teaching them about life as well. And as for the acting, yeah, I mean, a lot of guys. When you're the next Vinnie Jones, we'll do another one of these.
yeah,
But but all joking aside, mate, seriously, people have made a really good turn with that. And again, because you've been through the highs and the lows in your life for real, you can definitely bring that onto the screen if you get what I mean. You've got the emotions to show. So absolutely amazing. If they make a film about your life, who's gonna play you then? Who would you like to play you?
got to be someone handsome, ain't it? Honestly, I don't know. I don't know. Don't know. Maybe Danny Dyer. Who knows?
Yeah, we'll see, but it'll be good. It'll be good for sure. And the last thing I got to mention just before we wrap this up, your social media, people who want to reach out to you, follow with you, connect and find out about these things that are up and coming. What's the best way they can get hold of you? Mate, give yourself a shout out.
Yeah, can get me on Instagram and Twitter. Anthony Phythian 15. Yeah, just give us a follow.
Absolutely. I will say to our audience, keep an eye on this man because he's lived several lives so far, all rolled up into one, I would say. But there's definitely more to come. So keep an eye on what this man's doing. And thank you very much for your time, mate. And as I said earlier on, thank you for being an open book as well, because I know we've touched on some of the good memories, but we've touched on, some rough patches as well. And I'm sure it will help people. But I appreciate you being an open book. So thank you so much for your time.
No
Okay.
problem. Thanks, Liam. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe to the Simply Inspired YouTube channel, and there'll be more videos coming soon.